Hi Heartland, my name is Mike and I'm one of the pastors here, and we're glad that you've invited us into your home this weekend for church. I hope you're all keeping well during these unusual days. On that note, I want to bring you a bit of an update on where we're at as a church with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic. Recently, as part of its Phase 1 COVID-19 relaunch strategy, the provincial government began to lift some of the restrictions around group gatherings. As a church, this means that we can now meet together in groups of 50, albeit with a number of conditions. These conditions include the usual ones like social distancing and hand hygiene. They also include some that are more specific to churches, like no corporate singing, no passing of offering plates or communion trays, and no kids programming. While we might be able to figure out a workaround for each of these restrictions, simple math still dictates that we would need to run about 30 services on a weekend just to accommodate our regular attenders. Our staff may be well rested, but I don't think they're up for that. Now, others have suggested that we look at holding parking lot services in our vehicles. We've looked at that as well, but the restrictions there are that nobody can leave their cars, which means we still don't get to connect with others or experience corporate worship, not to mention the fact that the sight lines to a stage at one end of the parking lot would be less than ideal. In the end, our leadership team has concluded that at this point, there's still no practical way to offer in-person weekend services here at Heartland. What we are going to do, however, is begin to open up the building to small and medium-sized groups of 50 or less. Not only will this give us an option for our small groups, it will also allow us to run modified versions of many of our mid-sized events, like, for example, a marriage retreat, or Encounter God, or a night of prayer and worship. This week, the province is scheduled to release the guidelines for Phase 2 of the relaunch. Once we've reviewed those guidelines, we'll nail down our own protocols for gatherings and begin our reopening process. I also want to take a moment today and speak to those of you who are just plain weary of the social distancing and lockdown that have been part of this pandemic. Perhaps some of you are feeling like this has gone on for too long, and maybe even that some of this was unnecessary. While I can't speak to the medical side of all this, what I can tell you is that our decision to forego our weekend gatherings in order to help limit the spread of this virus has not gone unnoticed. As a church, we're not an island. In fact, since the beginning of Heartland, we've wanted to be the kind of church that is so involved in our community that we would be missed if we were gone. And right now, the sacrifice we've made, not just for ourselves, but for the broader community, is appreciated. But it's more than that. In my conversations at both the local and provincial level, there's a keen awareness of the unique role our faith communities play in addressing the growing spiritual and emotional needs of those around us. I was on a conference call recently with Premier Kenney and Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hinshaw. Both expressed deep gratitude for the work of faith communities during this stressful and difficult season, and both acknowledged the support and encouragement they themselves receive from their own faith communities. Church, let's rise to this occasion. Let's be those people who, in the words of the Apostle Paul, look out not only for our own needs, but also for the needs of others. And let's be praying for those in government at all levels as they make the difficult decisions that face our world these days.